Hey everybody, welcome to Screen Crush. I'm Ryan Airy. Spider-Man Far From Home has both a mid-credits and a post-credits scene, and both are pretty awesome. For today, we're going to focus on the post-credits scene, so if you haven't seen Far From Home or most other MCU movies, beware, big spoilers are ahead. So in this scene, Fury and Maria Hill are talking to Happy Hogan about the latter's not-so-secret encoded message. And right away, you can tell something is off with both Fury and Hill in this scene. After Fury says that he was suspicious of Beck from the start, Hill cuts in and says, no he wasn't. This is a big departure from what we've seen before, that Hill is always a loyal soldier to Fury and would never undercut him. I was suspicious of Fury since the start of this movie, since it's not like him to be fooled so easily, except I thought maybe he was one of Mysterio's illusions. But then the big reveal comes when both Hill and Fury return to their car and transform into Skrulls. It turns out that Fury was actually Talos, the Skrull leader from Captain Marvel, all along.
What?
At first I thought this was teasing a huge crossover event from the comics, Secret Invasion. In that arc, the Skrulls launched a covert invasion of Earth after posing as various superheroes for years. But it was revealed in Captain Marvel that the Skrulls are more of a peaceful race who just want to be left alone.
My people lived as refugees on Torfa, homeless, ever since we resisted Kree rule and they destroyed our planet.
Now here we see that that's still the case. Talos is just doing Fury a favor by filling in while he's on space vacation. But there's a little detail here that I liked. When Fury is on the beach, I rolled my eyes at first. The MCU tends to stage a lot of scenes that are obviously on green screen sets, and this was clearly one of them. So I loved the reveal that Fury was actually on a simulated beach. So anyways, Talos apologizes, saying he's not that great at this, and everyone keeps asking where the Avengers are. Fury sees that his double is in over his head, so he reluctantly ends his vacation. Then he walks into a giant hangar filled with what I presume are Skrull ships and says, I need to go back to work, where are my shoes? So, I love this post-credits scene for so many reasons, and it opens up a lot of questions about the past and future of the MCU, like, what's with the Skrulls? And when exactly did Fury go on this vacation? Is it a vacation at all? And what's next for the Avengers? First, let's talk about the Skrulls. The last time we saw them, about 25 years ago, the Kree had all but wiped out their race, and Captain Marvel was leading them to find a new home. Moses in space! Compare that to what we see at the end of Far From Home. It seems like they've resurged as a military power, with a whole fleet of ships. And by the way, I'm just assuming these are Skrull ships because I don't know of any other friends Nick Fury has in space. So what this tells me is that the Skrulls were able to rebuild their civilization in some distant corner of the universe. But also, it looks to me like they came back to their original home. And there's a couple of clues here. One, that Fury is able to communicate with Talos at all. The Lightspeed engine in Captain Marvel was built to get the Skrulls so far from the Kree that their communications couldn't be traced.
The core that she found would have powered a lightspeed ship capable of carrying us to safety, a new home, where the Kree can't reach us.
Second clue, at the beginning of Guardians of the Galaxy, the Kree have just signed a peace treaty with Xandar ending a 1,000-year war. It would make sense if the Kree spent a lot of resources tracking down the Skrulls. What if the Skrulls rebuilt their military and then returned home? Then the Kree would find themselves in a two-front war and would be forced to sue the Xandarians for peace.
We signed your peace treaty, Nova Prime. What more do you want?
Especially if the fleet killer Captain Marvel was fighting for them. Now, I'm wondering if the Skrulls are going to stay a benevolent race. In future movies, maybe there could be some kind of political coup that puts an evil, fascist regime in power. This would be a good setup for a Captain Marvel sequel. When you have a character who can destroy any enemy, you have to give her a foe that she can't punch to death. Like long, boring political intrigue.
Will you defer your motion to allow a commission to explore the validity of your accusations?
Politics in space! Also, it's interesting that earlier in the film, Fury seems kind of cool to Captain Marvel. Peter brings her up and he rolls his eyes and says something like, well, don't involve her name. Now, at first I thought that maybe this meant that he tried to call her a few times, like during the Chitauri invasion, and she ghosted him. But now it seems like Talos is a little tired of hearing about her. I don't really understand what's going on here. Jealousy? If you have a theory, please let me know about it in the comments below. Why would Talos not like Captain Marvel anymore? But the big question of the post-credits scene is, how long has Fury been a Skrull? Well, let's go back and look at Nick Fury's timeline to figure it out. He was obviously himself all the way through Captain Marvel. At the end of the movie, Space Moses takes Talos and his family to safety, and Fury starts the Avengers Initiative. So that's definitely human Fury. Next step, chronologically, are his parts in the Iron Man movies as director of S.H.I.E.L.D. He reveals that he knew Howard Stark and he's trying to form the Avengers. Since there's no way Fury would have abandoned this mission to go on vacation, I'm gonna say that this is still Human Fury. Next, Fury forms the Avengers, and again, this is Human Fury. Next, we have his first brief appearance on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. This is after he used the blood of a dead Kree to resurrect Coulson, which now makes total sense because he had encountered the Kree before in Captain Marvel. But then, Fury has a crisis of confidence. In the Winter Soldier, he discovers that Hydra had been inside of S.H.I.E.L.D. all along.
What?
After the fall of S.H.I.E.L.D., he sets fire to all of his spy stuff, including his eye patch. He appears at his own grave and says that he's going to Europe to mop up a few Hydra cells.
I'm headed to Europe tonight. Wanted to ask if you'd come.
And then we see him do exactly that. He helps Coulson defeat Hydra agent John Garrett. Afterwards, he makes Phil Coulson director of S.H.I.E.L.D. And I think that this scene is the last time we see the real Nick Fury for at least 5 years.
The last time you'll be seeing me for a stretch.
Fury is telegraphing that he's leaving Earth. He just gave Coulson his toolbox, a cube that contains all the world's secrets that Black Widow hasn't already uploaded to WikiLeaks. Then Coulson says, well, you'll be nowhere to be found. To which Fury replies,
Nowhere? You know me better than that, Phil. I'll be everywhere.
Now, in hindsight, with a little bit of retconning, the message is clear. Fury is saying that there are going to be several Skrull agents on Earth pretending to be him. Also, Fury's eye patch has suddenly returned. Coincidence? So why do I think that the Furies in Age of Ultron, Infinity War, and Endgame were all fake? Well, for starters, Fury doesn't do anything anymore. I mean, yes, he gives everyone a pep talk.
Here we all are, back on Earth, with nothing but our wit and our will to save the world.
Now, why would Fury say back on Earth? Definitely sounds like Skrull talk to me, you alien son of a gun.
Here we all are, back on Earth.
And then he shows up at the end with a secret helicarrier. And he says,
Pulled her out of mothballs with a couple of old friends.
the friend he's talking about is actually Director Coulson, as revealed on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Coulson had Fury's toolbox, so he knew about the secret carrier. So really, all faux Fury had to do was follow Coulson's lead.
Back on Earth.
See, the Avengers are the reason Fury felt okay about leaving Earth. He learned that they didn't need a Project Insight or even a shield as long as you have heroes.
If we get into a situation like this again, what happens then?
They'll come back.
But then, go through the events of Phase 3, and Fury is totally absent. The Avengers fall apart to infighting, and he's not there to keep them together. Stark installs a child to be a new superhero, and Fury never even checks the guy out. There's a coup and civil unrest in the world's most powerful nation, Wakanda, and Fury never tells Stark or anyone else that it's happening. And Fury clearly knew that Wakanda was important because it's on this map. But hey, why stop there? A renegade S.H.I.E.L.D. scientist named Hank Pym almost lets the most dangerous technology in the world fall into the open arms market, and Fury does nothing about it. When aliens invade New York, he doesn't show up at Avengers HQ to help coordinate. As far as we know, he and Maria Hill have just been riding around in cars since Age of Ultron. But the biggest clue that these Furies aren't real is in Age of Ultron. As pointed out by BuzzFeed earlier this year, Nick cuts his grilled cheese sandwich diagonally. But remember this scene from Captain Marvel?
Toast is cut diagonally, I can't eat it.
It's not just that Fury doesn't like when bread is cut diagonally. He abhors it. This is how he defines himself, how he says that he's the real Fury. This hatred of isosceles toast is part of who he is, what they would call a cornerstone in Westworld or a core memory in Inside Out.
Do you know what this means?
So, Nick Fury's been in space since 2014, maybe enjoying his vacation or maybe protecting Earth from other threats. Well, how did he get there? My guess is that he paged Carol and asked for a ride. He realized that the Avengers could handle any threat on Earth, so he wanted to deal with the threats from space.
They're dangerous.
They surely are. And the whole world knows it. Every world knows it.
And this actually matches up with the comics. In the crossover Original Sin, it was revealed that Fury was secretly conducting Black Ops assassination missions in space since the 1960s. Fury in space! The comics also feature an organization called SWORD. It stands for Sentient World Observation and Response Department. It's S.H.I.E.L.D.'s counterpoint in space that deals with extraterrestrial threats. We don't even know if Fury was actually blipped out of existence or where Maria Hill has been all these years, but the pair could have secretly been building SWORD. This would explain why they had access to orbital satellites in Infinity War.
We're watching every satellite on both hemispheres, but still nothing.
And why they had so many agents working for them in Far From Home. The movie also makes it seem like that Fury is about to set up the Avengers once more, and this would be kind of a nice way to start Phase 4. that Fury's the person who has to bring them all together again, just like he did in the original film. So, what did you guys think of Far From Home? What are your theories about Phase 4 of the MCU? Let me know in the comments below. And if it's your first time here, please subscribe. For Screen Crush, I'm Ryan Airy.